This is The Gorge. It's a podcast where my friend Sarah and I gorge ourselves on overanalyzing a topic. It is October, and so Sarah, what are we talking about this week?
Hey, it's October, which means we're still getting spooky here at the Gorge, the Gorge, if you will, the Gorge, the Horror Gorge. I don't know how to make that portmanteau work.
It's the horror, but with G and a GE at the end, but it's very hard to say. Like,
or I guess we could just say the Gorge, like gorge, like gore. Yeah, ooh, we're spooky. And we're bumping Indie Week ahead by a week because of reasons that will become apparent next time.
Yeah.
But until then, it's an early Indie Week. Hooray! And we're talking about some really indie-ass shit because we played 3 different horror games from itch.io. They were all incredibly short. Not a single one of them was more than an hour long. They were all either free or extremely cheap.
I think only one actually, you had to pay money for. I think Anatomy cost $1.
Yeah. And then the rest of them were free, and they're pay what you want. Mm-hmm. So we are going to talk about them in order of length. And so that means, I thought that'd be a good way. We'll start with the shortest and work our way along. So we are starting with Rot, Purgatory Hill by RG Crew. Let me see real quickly. I was going to have this pulled up on the thing. I actually have a tag on my itch.io. I have an itch.io account just for keeping track of things. And I actually have a horror tag of stuff we didn't play, but I would like to. And I'm going to post that on Twitter when we get done today. And so you'll actually be able to find a link of all of the games we played tonight, as well as a few others that I thought looked cool. But the ones that we picked were the ones I thought looked the most compelling. So the first one is Rot by RG Crew. Theirs is rg-crew.itch.io/rot. I just wanted to make sure, because really, these are such small games that just Googling it is not enough.
Well, and also the 3 titles of them are just
really
words.
Vague. Yeah, they're just words. They're just words. So we're starting with Rot.
Yeah, and it's not usually we play games on Steam, and so you can search the Steam library, but this is Itch. It's a little different, but yeah.
It's a little different. I don't think Itch's search function is that great just yet. They're working on it. And yeah, this game was made in Unity, like most indie games are. And yeah, so how about Rot? Rot is a game you almost cowered it out of, right?
Yeah, Rot is a so it did a very, very good job of throwing a lot at you all at once.
Yeah.
You start off and it's just you're in the car and you get out and immediately there's a crying woman.
Right.
There's a woman in agony and you're okay, well this is something, and then it just escalates and it keeps throwing more and more elements at you that are disorienting.
Yeah, it's like playing a panic attack. I don't know. It's just it's tense. It has no jump scares at all, except for the cuts to a new thing, I guess I should say, because I'm trying to keep it a little bit vague. So there are cuts, and those will kind of be oh shit, that came out of nowhere. But except for one thing that happened, the gunshots thing, which is just, oh god, what is even going on in this game? I kind of have a vague idea of what happened, what the story of Rot is, but I'm not sure. I feel I'm wrong,
I don't know at all, what... I tried, because, obviously there's no, TV tropes page for this game.
Of course.
It's 20 minutes long. Of course there's not one.
Yeah.
All I had to go on was, reviews and, watching a few, skipping to the end of some LPs and, does this LPer, have any feedback, any, idea?
Yeah. The page itself for Rot is a short psychological horror game inspired by the Silent Hill series, obviously. And at the very end, it says, the key to understanding is not a literal interpretation of everything you experience. Whatever that means.
Whatever that means.
Yeah.
All I know is that I kind of have a vague idea of like a vague theory of what we were seeing. Mm-hmm. Especially knowing that it is based on Silent Hill, you kind of get an idea that, oh, the guy I'm playing as probably did some shit.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it now. I realize I should have. It says they're based off a short film, a short movie called Rot Silent Hill. And I should have watched it before we got started today, but you kind of want to just watch the game itself. You want to just judge it by the game itself.
Right.
To kind of interpret it the best you can. But yeah.
Yeah, the one thing I do want to note about it, and that got me personally, like, I think it's a good thing to talk about, like, you know, not just, oh, it's very tense, it does a lot of psychological stuff, like, what got you in that game?
Yeah.
For me, it was the tornado siren.
Oh god, the tornado siren was probably the worst. I think the biggest, was the woman walking backwards for me, but the tornado siren got you.
Because I am personally terrified of tornadoes. And so, like, you know, when that happened, when the wind started picking up.
Oh man, when it actually started bending the trees backward?
Yeah. And the siren is just blaring, I'm like, okay, that's going to trigger a panic attack at any second now.
Yeah, it is tense. It is incredibly just like, and I mean, it's hard to kind of, and it helps that it is such a short game, so that they can actually you can just keep escalating tension basically forever, because it's so short. Like, you don't have to have breather moments because the game itself is so short.
It never gives you a moment to, like, rest. Like, ever.
And it literally does not let you stop. And I think the tornado sirens, I live in Alabama, I have a lot of tornado problems. So the tornado sirens was like tension, but the the darkness when you spend the whole time in this game in the light, and then toward the end it cuts you into pitch blackness.
Oh.
And you're like, no, and you hear like a baby crying, and when it kicks you into total blackness except for a light ahead of you, that was kind of like my, like, that was when I was expecting something to come kill me. And good on them for not doing any actual jump scares, just a lot of like weird imagery and creepy sound cues.
A lot of, like, the other one that got me was the one where it's like about halfway through where there are two of the things.
Yeah.
I never even got a good look at them.
It's the woman model, but she's walking, she's on her back, and she's spider walking backwards, but she's only using her legs, so her arms are dragging, and her head is so folded back that you can't see it.
Yeah, it's the woman's model, but it's very distorted, and like it's, you know, you don't know. Didn't know what I was looking at all.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely not, because I kept trying to backpedal away from it, and you move so slowly.
You get the one where, like, okay, so you see it early on, like after the tornado siren, and after the sky turns green, which was like, okay, that is also one of my, like,
tornado things.
Tornado things, like when the sky itself turns a different color, I'm like, oh shit, something's up.
Yep.
And you just see it for the first time, and then time freezes, you know.
Yeah. Oh man, I thought the game broke at first. I was like,
I didn't know, like, and then, but the second one, when two of them show up.
Yeah, because the second one doesn't show up at the same time.
Yeah, it just kind of comes out of the foliage, you know, and then you get the only text prompt in the entire game. You know, get back to your car.
Oh, like, God, that was so scary.
I'm like, oh, fuck, I gotta go now.
There's only one text prompt in the whole game, and it flashes across your screen, and it's really aggressive. And, yeah, I was really impressed by it. I mean, you can't even spend that long talking about it, because it is a 10 to 15 minute game.
Yeah, it's like, there's nothing to explore. You are like when I was doing the when I was in the tornado siren scene, like I didn't know, like I was trying to get into the house, you know, because there's the one building, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm trying to get in here. Is that what it wants?
No
like
door.
I need to get shelter.
Yeah. And
so I did a perimeter walk, and like there's not much to explore. There's nothing. There's no branching path at all. It's you know,
just a little story. Yeah, it's just a little self-contained story.
So there's like literally no way for you to spend more than like 20 minutes unless you just stand there and do nothing and let the clock run.
Which, I mean, I guess could be a valid way to explore the game more.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, and then you kind of get hints of like what's going on. You know, there's a car accident. You know that this guy is in purgatory because the damn game is called Rot Purgatory Hill.
Right.
This guy is in hell or purgatory or something like that, and he killed somebody. Somebody killed him.
He hit someone. Because the last thing you get is
that text message.
You get the text message, and then you also hear a paramedic.
Yeah.
Yelling, trying to stabilize him.
So did he hit somebody and somebody killed him? He killing somebody?
He hit someone. He hit a woman, a pedestrian, and he wrecked his car. Like he swerved into a ditch or something. It's so unclear. Like, is the woman who he was texting?
Yeah, is that her? Is that her? And then there's the whole gunshots thing. Like, there's a whole extended sequence where it sounds like there's a lot of shooting, and then there's a gun in the passenger side car that you can never actually pick up.
You can never do anything with that, and there is a woman on the radio asking if you remember what you did.
Yeah.
And you are given no, like, does that mean, do you remember that you hit someone? Do you remember doing something to whoever that woman is, your wife, your girlfriend? And the game has no answers. The game is, here it is.
Yeah, it's I mean, and that's kind of cool. That's just straight up, that's short horror writing right there. It's simple short horror writing of just like you interpret whatever the hell is going on kind of thing. A
lot of short horror is rooted in confusion.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes the short horror stories work better where you don't actually get an explanation. It's just that a terrifying thing is happening and you are kind of in a little sliver of time where this scary thing is happening, you know?
Right.
And I really enjoyed it. It's the free one. They don't even prompt you to pay for it. So, I mean, honestly, you lose nothing by not playing. We didn't even talk about like half of like the creepy shit in Rot. You lose nothing by playing this game. If you have a halfway decent computer, it'll run because it was built in Unity. And it's free. They don't even ask for pay what you want. They just give you a download link, which is neat. And yeah, I give it a shot. I mean, honestly, we haven't talked about all of the spooky shit because I don't want to spoil every spookum.
Yeah, all it is just, it is relentless and like
tense. And if you're at all an anxious person, maybe take a breath before you plug it in.
Right? Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where like it's like if it's the other thing is as a warning, like don't think you can just like stop and come back to it later. Like no, it doesn't have any save points. It has no like
pause button. It doesn't even have a pause button.
Yeah. I don't. To be honest, I don't know how to quit the game normally without just Control-Alt-Deleting and ending the application.
You can hit escape. I'll tell you that. You can hit escape and it'll and you play it in windowed mode. I played it in windowed mode just because, like, why not? You hit escape and it'll open the X that'll let you close the game out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But otherwise, there's no pause, there's no taking a breath. You just, because it's so short, just turn it on, watch it. Just get it through, get through it and see what you think about it, and come talk to us about it on Twitter. Because I liked Rut, and I want to hear what people have to say about it. I am discovering I have a craving for these little tiny itch.io games. And so, yeah. And speaking of that, tiny little itch.io games, the next one on the agenda is, hold on, I want to get the thing. It is Faith, which is actually a game that's getting a little bit of play because literally today the Best Friends put out a playthrough a shitstorm of Faith.
Yeah.
And they didn't get through all of it.
No,
of course not.
I didn't watch that episode yet, but I saw like the timing of it, and I'm like, you probably had like 15 minutes of the game left.
You could have, you would have, you're so done, you're so close, guys. Come on. Just a little bit long. They played a bunch of other shitty games. They played The Works of Mercy yesterday for like an hour, and that game sucks. But you won't finish Faith? It's way better than that.
It's really good.
It's really good.
I'm going to bet it's probably because Pat cowered it out.
Probably, or Wooly. It's either Pat or Wooly, because it was one of them. Mm-hmm. But real quick, Faith is by Airdorf on itch.io, and literally as I was looking up this episode, I found out there's a demo for Chapter 2. As I was doing prep work for this episode, I discovered there's a Chapter 2. It's only a demo, so it's actually not out yet, but yeah.
I think out of the 3 that we played, I think Faith is my favorite.
Really? Okay, then talk to me a lot about it, my friend.
I think, for one thing, it's very unique. Mm-hmm. The other 2 we played are the first-person environmental walkthrough, or, walking simulators that are spooky.
Yep.
And you get a lot of those, and of course, kind of the things we talk about with Indie Week, where it's like, that you get a lot of them because they're easy to make and they don't require the asset heavy you need to do, like, a cutscene or to do a full 3D environment game,
Yep.
But Faith is the opposite of that, where it is more of a pixel-based 2D indie game, which is the other side of the coin of games that's easy to make.
Yes.
But you don't see a lot of DOS games being made nowadays.
No, this is a very faithful recreation of what they list on their itch.io page is Faith is a pixel horror game inspired by the era of MS-DOS, Apple II, Atari, and the ZX Spectrum classics. So, that is old.
That's and it definitely shows it.
Yeah.
So what I think the reason I think Faith is one of my favorites, for one thing, is not just because it's unique in its presentation, but also because like that era of game is very unique. For much of the same reason that, like, we say every N64 cartridge is haunted.
Yeah.
Every, like, DOS game that comes out, like, if you were, like, a little kid like I was when DOS was around and, like, was, like, the thing for games like that, games were even more of a mystery than they were during the N64 era for me, where it's like, I don't know what a video game is made of. I don't know how these things work.
Right.
Especially on a computer that, you didn't have a personal computer back then. You had the computer in the computer room.
Right.
And the computer room was likely also a laundry room or also in the basement. Where, guess what? It's not going to be a nice, cozy area to play your games in. Yeah, it's if you're in the basement and you're playing a DOS game that's kind of creepy and it's kind of late at night,
that shit's evil.
Yeah.
That shit feels cursed.
So, especially if it's a game that's not even supposed to be scary, but something about it scares you, which is very common when you're a kid.
Yeah.
So I think that's why, like, Faith harkened back to that exact era of, like, that, like, thing of, like, playing a game that you probably shouldn't be playing,
right.
Because it's way too intense for you, in a room that you're not familiar with, that's not, like, designed to be safe and inviting.
Right.
On a computer that's not yours and, like, is usually, more for work or anything else, and, like, it's not your primary form of playing games on.
Right.
So it's all these combinations, and plus, alongside the fact that the story it tells is actually really tense, and right away, the first thing you get is the highly, like the voice that they do
modulated. Yeah, it's not modulated because it's really just a computer generated voice. Like it's
right.
like a speak and say kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Very loud and like very sharp.
Yeah, and very like disconcerting because it doesn't sound like a person at all.
Yeah, and you are given very little to do at first until the monster shows up for the first time.
Oh god. Man, and how about, real quick, the animations in this game considering they are trying to be, obviously, I don't think you could have done this on a ZX Spectrum, but, like, the animations in this game of, like, the really short one you get of the spider monster, and of Amy, are all, like, they're great, and they are really disturbing.
It's the disturbing thing about it is the sudden jump in, like, animation quality, you know?
Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing where it's like the uncanny valley. I kind of say this a lot. Like, I don't know if I said this on camera, but I think the scariest thing for me to see in real life would be someone with a poor frame rate in real life.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the opposite, where you get familiar with, you know, a guy who has 2 frames of animation.
Yeah,
walking
the game
around.
Literally runs at 15 FPS, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, actually is locked at 15 FPS.
When you get that and suddenly you're treated to a cutscene where this very, very fluid pixel-based animation.
Beautiful.
It is super unnerving. It is very uncomfortable.
Yeah. It's, and just, like, the imagery itself inside those animations is, like, really for using, because, again, they're trying to emulate a specific look, and so they can't have it be too detailed, and so for the look they're going for, the stuff they use is just really unsettling. And, and the one of the arm coming out of the face is gonna, like,
that one got me really good.
Yeah, it's really good.
It's really great because you know, a lot of these horror games will have, like, you know, one of the things they do is that they have a monster that roams around the environment, right? You know, a lot of the 3D ones will have, like, a creature
that you have to avoid.
And the fear is the creature can pop out at any time, right? Well, how do you translate that into a tile-based, like, sprite game like this? Is you do the same thing where on a screen, at any random screen, at any random time, the monster might just appear in one direction, and you don't have a good window to, like, react to it.
Right, yeah, it's fast, and unfortunately your little cross has got a good little AoE.
It's got a cone on it, but
it has a good cone on it, but still.
When you get the Chupacabra, and then you get Amy herself.
Yeah.
Which turns into a very confusing, like, puzzle battle for a second until you figure out the gimmick.
It took me a couple Mortis screens to figure out what in the hell was going on, and when you get it, it's still really spooky. It's still unsettling.
You know, it really ramps up the fear of, like, going to different tiles, especially in the forest outside, because it's very easy to get lost and get yourself back to your car, and you're like, well, I don't want to travel off the beaten path because I might just end up back at the start again, or...
Right.
I never figured out the internal logic of where the tiles are laid out. Like, I don't know if, like, there is, like, a set, like, tile set, or if it's, like... the forest in, like, Legend of Zelda, where it'll just, like, unless you go this certain path, you'll just keep repeating the same screen over and over again.
Yeah, I have no idea. I was doing a little bit of research before we started, and it seemed like somebody had made a map, but then I was reading in the comments somewhere else that it was randomly generated. But it can't be, like, some of the screens are randomly generated, but not all of them, because obviously, like, the well has to be locked into place, because the well is, like, a waypoint, you know? Or a waypoint, not a wavewpoint. So maybe it isn't randomly generated? I don't know. There was a map, but I don't know how much you can trust the map.
It would require, like, a lot of, like, testing to like, figure out the logic behind it, and that's what makes it scary, is that you can't quite determine, like, what it wants you to do.
Yeah.
And also, you know, unlike the other two we were playing, like, this one is unique in that it actually had, like, a concrete beginning and end of a story.
Yeah, absolutely.
It had, like, it was not an environmental thing, it was more like a you know, and you get these notes that, like, fill you in a little bit on what's happening, and, you know, that kind of, like, dread building up. It was very interesting to play a game where, for once, the Catholic guy was the good guy.
Yeah. I mean, depending on your... Yeah. Yeah, and then, there's, which ending did you get? Just
I did all of them. I got all of them.
You did all of them. Okay, okay. I got 2 of them, and then I got tired. So, I got the one where you leave, and you get caught by the guys in the red hoods.
Mm-hmm.
And I got the murderer ending, and then I YouTubed the other ones because I was really tired that night. So
right.
I've seen all the endings, but I got 2 of them. You know what I mean?
The problem with doing the endings is that, like, once you figure out, like, how to get them, it's like, okay, well, it depends on who you shoot. It's like, man, this guy goes real slow though. He's
real slow, and I really enjoyed Faith, but I would enjoy Faith a lot more if his move speed was about twice as fast.
And like, I get it because, again, DOS game.
Game. I get it. You can't run at very fast frames per second, but
but like, once you get an ending and you kind of like figure out what you're going to do with that ending, it's like, okay, well, I want to see them all now. Can I please just get to the next branching path and shoot the next target?
Can we pick up the pace just a little bit, please, game? Just a little bit. I'm not asking for a lot because I know that we want to keep it, we want to keep it true to the medium, but still.
I mean, yeah, I don't think a priest would have a quick step, but
But it's okay. But in general, a lot of really cool spooky imagery. Hey, fuck the sheet ghosts in the basement.
Oh yeah.
I didn't like that. I didn't like it.
I didn't like going down there and seeing a bunch of dummies and being like,
That's looks evil. Okay. Yeah. That's
like
real
that.
Evil looking. Don't like that. No, don't like it. And the fact that the twins aren't in any of the family photos.
Oh my god, I didn't even think about that, but you're right. Like, none of the photos you can look at on the walls have the twins in them.
Don't like that. Yeah, don't like that. Don't like it.
I don't like that the guy near the shack.
I didn't get the guy. The guy who gives you a thing. I saw that on the internet.
I only saw that, like, he's in the ending and you can shoot him.
The dude who gives you a thing, right?
Yeah, who was that?
I didn't get that guy. No. Apparently he's random because some other people didn't get the guy either, but he gives you a thing, and he gives you a thing called a novus, and that's Latin for nose?
I don't, because, like, he's one of the things you can shoot at the end, like, one of the 5 targets of the ending.
Yeah.
Right? And so, like, it's just a guy, and at first I tried to follow him, like, because he runs off to a different screen, and I'm like, okay, well, I'll try to follow him and see,
Right.
But he doesn't. He just returns back to the shack, and you can find him again.
Yeah.
But I don't know who that is.
I don't know who that is, and I don't like it. Maybe Chapter 2 will give us that answer. Maybe. But yeah.
Some of the endings were really good, though. The implication that all of this was just the delusion of a crazy man who just shot a random girl.
Yes, because he wasn't actually... he says what I do is not sanctioned by the Vatican, but that's because he's not actually a priest.
Yeah, he's just a weird guy with a gun.
He's just a guy with a gun, turns out. Whoopsie doodle. Deer ending is best ending.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Deer ending.
I can't believe in this fucking MS-DOS game they gave you a dog ending, basically. Right. They managed to fit in a dog ending. I love it. I'm so glad. Yeah.
I like the one where you just shoot the chupacabra because, like, it's so, like, blasé and, like, so matter of fact. Like,
yeah,
you leave without doing anything, and you get to your car, and then you just turn around and you just pop the thing,
and then it gets hit by a truck, and
then it crawls into the street and gets hit by a truck.
I guess that kind of solves the problem, even though there's a maybe demon-possessed girl just kind of running around in the woods now. It's fine. It's fine. She might not even be. He could just be crazy.
Yeah,
so,
he might just be... I did not like when you get to her in the attic.
Yep.
And the priest is like, my God, what happened to your face?
Yeah.
And then it's like... And then she, like, leans... Like, in the cinematic, when she, like, leans in and exposes... Like, it's about to expose her face. I'm like, don't like this.
Don't like it. Don't like it. Do you think I'm pretty? She says. Yeah. Faith is good. Faith is real good.
Faith is really, really good.
And I'm gonna look into this chapter 2 demo and see what's up with that, because that's cool. I mean, literally, as I was getting ready for this episode tonight, I was like, damn it, there's a chapter 2. We could have played that too, but it's not. It's just a demo. It's fine.
Yeah. So the deluxe edition, but there is also on itch, there is a deluxe edition that comes with like some wallpapers and some like little bonus cool stuff. I don't think it adds anything to the actual game. I think it's just like, here's some cool backgrounds for your phone and for your computer and stuff. Right.
Okay. Cool. I did pay what you want, and I didn't get the deluxe edition, but yeah, it's pay what you want. How much is the deluxe edition, you said?
I think it's like $2. It's very little. Like, it's nothing.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, this is why I like itch. It's also because it's like an affordable gaming habit. And yeah, Faith is really cool, and you should check it out, because we didn't even talk about a bunch of shit in the notes. And you should just experience it for yourself, because it is just an eerie... For one, it's a cool trip down memory lane to just see like what an old video game, like a really, really old video game was like, because if you're me, you've never played like a game that old in your life.
Right.
I didn't have that exposure. And because it is actually a genuinely interesting little story with some good creepy moments. So yeah, play Faith.
It's very cool because like you see a lot of retro style games, usually in the NES, Super Nintendo, Genesis era. You very rarely see anyone go back to Atari or DOS style games. Right, because it's like, oh, we made Shovel Knight, and it's as faithful to the NES as possible, with like a little bit of extra parallax scrolling and stuff like that. It's like, oh, that's pretty. It's really hard to make a game that's actually pretty on an Apple II. Yeah, when you have about 4 colors to work with at any given time, basically.
4 colors and 3 sounds to work with on any day. Yeah. So, but they actually manage some pretty cool spooky imagery, which is great. So yeah. Play Faith. So, last but not least, certainly not least, is my favorite game of the evening. It's Anatomy by Kitty Horror Show. Probably the most well-known game on the list, because again, the best friends played it. And it's one of their better playthroughs, because it's a really good damn game.
I think out of all of them, this one has the most going on in it.
It has the most going on, and the most, like, polish, I think.
Yeah, I can see that, yeah.
Because Rot is really pretty, but it is made in Unity, and I think with some, like, just, pre-made Unity assets. But Anatomy is something special. Anatomy is it's like one of the most eerie games I've ever played, despite being an incredibly simple concept. And I have a lot of feelings, those big gross feelings that I tend to have on this podcast when it comes to Anatomy. Because, like, short story before we get started, to kind of understand, like, hey Sarah, why are you so obsessed with Anatomy? Why do you want everybody to play Anatomy? So on April 27th, 2011, a Category 4 tornado hit North Alabama and killed something like 100 people in the entire state. In my town, it killed, I think, 3 is the official death count. It was a pretty significant day. It raised pretty huge portions of where I live. Old houses that have been there for like 100 years were just gone in a day. My mom saw it, and it was like the scariest thing she's ever seen in her life, she said. And it was a big changing thing. And the most important part of the story is that because where I live is a pretty poor part of North Alabama, a lot of people didn't have house insurance. They got a payout from FEMA, and then they took their money, and they just left. They packed up, and so the countryside of where I live, the city itself has restored itself really well because they all got insurance money, and they used it to make the town look really beautiful again. But the countryside and the county, not so much. People just took their money and they kind of left, and so the county is full to the brim of these abandoned houses, and they are fascinating.
And yeah. And
that's what anatomy is about.
That's...
Anatomy is about, like, the feelings we imbue on our stuff. Which is a thing we've talked about a few times before. And I've explored, like, houses that were left abandoned by the tornadoes, and houses that have been abandoned even longer than that. And it looks like something happened. Like, people just packed up and left. It's the weirdest thing. Yeah, and so that's kind of why, like, I'm always like, play anatomy! It's because anatomy is incredible. It's such a simple concept. And, such a incredible execution just by limiting your field of view to be so short, you know?
Well, a lot of horror is rooted in, like I said, it's a lot rooted in confusion, but it's also rooted, especially for games, it's rooted in limitations. That's why Silent Hill works as well as it does, because you are not, in Resident Evil, you are a member of STARS, you are a special ops agent. In Silent Hill, you are just a guy, and that's kind of the idea behind them. You are limited in how you can interact with your environment.
Right.
And that is very true. It's weird enough, like, you actually have way more mobility in anatomy than you do in the other two games.
Oh yeah, you move at a really reasonable pace. You actually you can clear the house really fast.
You move and you can jump, and
you can jump.
You can, like, lean forward and zoom in on things.
Yeah, which feels cursed.
Which is a weird feature because you never need it for anything in that game. It is not a very visual game. It's very much more audio.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say that the other weird thing about this, and I don't know, this might be more personal for me than you, but, like, the way the map is laid out. When I used to do game production. I was in a game production school.
Yeah.
So when we would work in Unity and we would work in 3ds Max to do modeling and stuff, one of the things that always kind of, like, unsettled me was when you would design an environment and, like, because we were all amateurs, the objects and the size of things would be slightly off.
Be too big.
Yeah, too big or too small, or, like, rooms would be, like, unrealistic, like... And that's what you get a lot of in anatomy, is a lot of these rooms are not the size they should be.
Oh, the master bedroom is huge, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's like a nightmare.
The stairs don't have railings on them.
Yeah. And this is all, like, totally intentional. At least I think it's all intentional, because Kitty Horrorshoe makes a lot of horror games.
It has to be, like, because it's everything. The doors are slightly too wide.
Yep.
The living room, the couches are near the TV, and there's just so much empty space.
Yeah, behind the couches, it's just empty space that like, what is even going on here? Like, why would you do that? It all feels, like, unnatural.
Yeah, it makes the house feel like you are in like an environment that's like, and it's not like, and the thing is, it's not like scale wise. It's not like the chair is too big for, like, a person to sit in. Like, it's that the rooms themselves just feel off-center in a way, you know? Mm-hmm. And that is, like, really, really unsettling.
Yeah.
It would be like going into a room in your house and all the picture frames are slightly tilted.
And you've been gone all day and the house has been locked up. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, and it has to be intentional because the whole thing is about the structure of a house.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And about how, like, we place so much faith in our houses to not fail us, basically.
Yeah.
And, you know, about, like, I love that the increasingly, the growing size of the one picture that's in the master bedroom, I think. Mm-hmm. It's that drawing that everybody has seen that represents what a night terror feels like. And it's like the demon sitting on somebody's chest. That's what that is. And that thing gets blown up to a huge size when you go through a third loop. And, I just bumped my mic. Sorry if you hear that on the recording. That's why I just, like, accidentally knocked my hand against my mic. Yeah, the details. Oh god, the repeating, the tape, you think it's a tape you found, and it's just somebody screaming.
In the kid's bedroom.
The kid's bedroom, and it's just somebody screaming. And you can't turn it off.
So I found it on the second loop, I think.
Yeah.
This game does the cool thing, which we have to talk about because we talk about it every time it happens. It does the cool thing where it crashes your game.
I love it. I never get old.
It's Undertale, one shot.
Never gets old.
It's the best. It's always the best. And the game is like, we're like freaking babies with jingly keys. It's like the game closed by itself.
The game is alive. Yeah, it's great. But
video games are real.
But in here, it's like this thing has come alive. Your game has come alive, which is what the game is about. Mm-hmm. It's about imbuing enough like psychological meaning onto a thing that it kind of becomes alive, which is and that's a thing that One Shot did as well. But it's about your house instead. So. And it's this idea of you've imbued feeling on it, so it's not that it's like the game is alive, but it's really more like a really good expression that the house is shutting you out, like it's kicking you out, you know?
Right. It's less like the way Undertale or One Shot does it, or Doki Doki Literature Club, where it's like, oh, the horror is that the game is acting beyond what a game should act, and it's more of the game crashing is more of a representation of the message it's trying to express, which is more about imbuing emotions and stuff on inanimate objects.
Yeah.
So it's very effective here. So when you get the second loop and you get that tape, and the tape in the kid's bedroom is a nursery rhyme.
That's the Lord's Prayer.
Yeah, it is the Lord's Prayer, but it's being like screamed.
But it's not like. It's not screamed in terror. It's just somebody, like, screaming it almost like they're compelled to scream it, you know?
Or, like, you know how children will just yell?
Yeah, and they'll just yell things. Yeah.
They'll
like
just,
that.
Like, children will just scream sometimes. And that's just the thing they'll be doing. And it's still creepy.
Yeah, it is.
Because why?
Why are you yelling? Okay, sure. And that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, it sounds like a child is just yelling the Lord's Prayer as loud as they want because they want to.
And it's creepy. And then later, is it in the...
It's in the third loop.
Is it in the third loop where it's just somebody screaming?
Yeah.
And you can't turn it off?
Yeah, where it's just screaming and I'm just kind of sat there and listened to it for a while, and then I'm like, I'm just going to go.
I'm going to go now. And then, I love that you can still explore the house, and every now and then you'll drift by that room, and it's still screaming, and you forget that it was on. So you're like, oh God, what is that? And then you're like, oh, it's the tape. It's still screaming at me. Okay, this is fine. Yeah.
Or it's like, you just kind of peek your head and like, are you still? Okay, yeah, you are. Okay, I'm going to go.
Okay, I'm going to go. Bye. This is fine.
Just seeing if anything changed. All right, bye.
No, okay, bye. Yeah.
This game does do the other thing that I like about horror, or like the other thing that I'm like, what I talked about earlier, where it's like the scariest thing would be like if someone with an improper frame rate in real life.
Yes.
Because this game is so immersive, it does the other thing that I think would be terrifying, which would be to see a Z fighting or a ragdoll glitch in the real
world. Yeah. When the mirror in the bathroom is just clipping into the wall, and you're like, that's not right. Nope.
Where you kind of, it's in the second loop, and you peek in, and you're like, I don't think that was supposed to be like that. I think maybe the game is not working properly. I don't think that was supposed to happen. And then you see some Z fighting, and you're like, that's peculiar, but I mean, this is a Unity game, and Z fighting does happen to games.
Yeah. And then it just keeps going, and it's literally like the house itself is like coming apart. It's it's using video game glitches as a representation of something else, which is like, usually it's like, oh, video game glitches are creepy, but that's not what Anatomy, I mean, that is what Anatomy is doing, because they are creepy.
Yeah.
But It's also that, like, video game glitches are creepy, but in this case they're representing something else. The game shutting you out is a representation of the house. The glitches are a representation of the house, like, coming apart at the seams, kind of having this emotional moment as something pokes around inside of it, and you are not, like, welcome here anymore.
Right.
Yeah,
like,
it's so good.
Like, instead of representing it as the house, as, like, the wood cracking or, like, the furniture breaking, it chooses to represent the house's, I guess, emotional breakdown.
Yeah.
It chooses to represent that in the form of video game glitches and visual cues and, like, repeating objects and flickering.
Did you turn on the light in the living room in the second or third loop?
I did not. What happens?
It's the textures go insane in the living room, and so everything is suddenly, instead of being like normal light, everything is just bathed in a glitched out purple, and it's the best.
Oh my god, I'm gonna restart the game and do that again.
Whole room goes bonkers. It's great. And
I want to see that.
If you turn on the TV, you get the screen that says you never came back. It's actually on the screen. Like, you get it when you restart the game or when the game crashes, one or the other. But it's also on the TV in the second or third loop. You get the "you never came back" screen, and it's just like, oh,
that's good.
Oh, it's haunting. It's just because, I mean, again, I just start thinking about, like, all these, I've been in abandoned houses before, and I've explored a lot of abandoned houses in my time, and I've been to houses that are like, you go to them and they've been abandoned for way before the tornadoes happened, and you're like, why the hell is this house still standing after the tornadoes? It just got completely bypassed, I guess. Like, I've been to houses that are like, oh my god, I went to one once, and the door was so, like, something had fallen in front of it, like something had collapsed over the years in front of it. Me and my brother were together, and we jimmied the door open a little, and we could look into the house. We didn't really trust ourselves to go inside because the floors were bad. But we looked into the house, and it was a perfect shot from the front door into the living room. And I swear, the way there was stuff piled in a chair in the living room, it looked like somebody was sitting in it. Yeah. And I didn't even have to say it, because I'm standing next to my younger brother, and we both got the door, like, kind of forced open, and I saw it, and my brain went, oh god, that's a person. And then I heard Trey just go, like that. He gasped. And I was like, you saw it too? He's like, yeah, but it's not a person. It's just stuff in a chair. and it's just, but, like, that house is, and that was one of those houses where it's just like people just kind of up and left one day, and you don't know why, because there was just still stuff everywhere. There was an old barn with stuff out in it, and there was a garage with an old truck in it, and literally the house was full of stuff. It was in the windows. There was a Christmas wreath on a door. And it's like somebody just one day just up and left this house behind, and like that, the model. Oh god, the monologue at the end of Anatomy is just like, oh, it's the most tense, and like
it's tense and like I want to talk about
unbearably sad.
Yeah, tragic, and I want to get to that in a little bit, but I want to talk about something you just mentioned.
Yeah,
about, like, the house filled with stuff, and, like, in comparison to what we just did to RE7, and talking about that, and especially with the base game, where the terror of that is that there's still stuff in this house that's seemingly abandoned, like it's still being occupied by someone or something in this house.
Yeah.
And the contrast with that in Anatomy is how barren the house is.
Yeah. But the stuff that's in the house isn't disturbed is an important thing. It's that aspect of literally somebody just packed up and left one day, and they just they literally just abandoned the house, and nobody ever went back, That's what the TV says. It says you never came back. Nobody ever came back to this house.
There's no, like, trash or, like, stuff strewn about the house, but there's still beds, there's still a couch, a TV, there's still plates on the kitchen table.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, when you get to the third loop and the game starts falling apart.
Yeah, it's like eating itself. It's like, and yeah, but, like, plates on a table, I've seen that, and then I've also been to houses that were, like, literal hoarder houses where the floor has collapsed from, like, garbage, and that is a completely different feeling too.
Right.
That is a house that, I mean, I walked in with my brother and we were like, this place is bad mojo. We didn't stay long because it was giving you such a bad energy. And it's like, there's nobody here, you know, there's nobody there, but why am I feeling like this? And that's what Anatomy is about. Yeah.
Anatomy is all about the feeling that's left behind when the people are gone.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what I want. That's exactly what it is. The tagline for this game is every house is haunted.
Yeah, and that's completely true. The other one thing I really like about this is that they do a really good fake out.
Yeah.
I don't know if you noticed this or not, but you get a tape. One of the tapes you get, and I think on the second playthrough, when the tapes are getting corrupted.
Yeah.
And you get the one tape that's about, it's a woman talking about someone she hates.
No, that's the house. That's the house talking about somebody breaking in.
Yeah, but like in the context, it sounds like a woman talking about someone she hates, and it's implied that she pushed him down the stairs, and you think, because you don't know what the game is about still.
Right, yeah, I guess that's true, yeah.
You think it's like, oh god, that's the thing about this game is that there was a murder that took place in the house, and you're investigating that murder, and it tells you go to the basement where you just heard that a guy was pushed down the stairs.
Yeah.
And it's like, go to the basement. Oh
no, yeah.
But it's not about, like, that's not what it's about, as you learn later. It's much more of a tragedy than anything else.
Yeah, it's the house, and it's the house, God, it's a Silent Hill thing again, where a place can be alive. And the house is basically confessing on that tape that she killed a guy because, you know, he came into the house and he was drunk and he peed on one of the walls and she wanted him out. And I say she because the voice is feminine sounding, but it wanted him out. And so it slammed a door and it startled that enough to make him fall down the stairs and die. And you know, she says, I can feel him like decomposing in the basement. And it's like, oh, that's so spooky.
Yeah.
So spooky. Yeah, it's really good.
Even the first loop of the tapes being played do such a great job of setting up, like, you don't know what it's setting up at first. You don't know what it's talking about. You don't know if it's talking about the psychology of, like, a person. Mm-hmm. You know, and it compares, you know, you think the idea of it comparing of, you know, the rooms of a house to a person's anatomy is the idea of comparing a person's psychology, because that's what you're used to for horror games, you know?
Yeah.
You don't think about it being the other way around. It's not that a house is like a person, it's that, like, a person is like a house.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
It's
so good. I think about there's the last line in the first loop that is, it is here that we place ourselves most at the house's mercy. I looked up this line. It is here that we place ourselves most at the house's mercy and spend each night hoping that it will not bite down.
Yeah.
It's talking about the bedroom, like the place where you sleep every night. And yeah, I was talking about that with somebody today about, you know, you kind of place your trust, because I had this game on the brain. I was talking to other people just about it because it was on my mind. And we kind of place our trust in where we live, and sometimes where we live can turn its back on us.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and it's scary. I just, a few weeks ago, I watched, just to kind of make more references, because that's what I do whenever we talk on this show these days. A few weeks ago, I watched the Wham City comedy horror project, This House Has People in It. And that one, like, really disturbed me for a few days. I actually kind of just was, like, afraid of my own home because of, and it's a surrealist, absurdist horror thing, whereas Anatomy is more concrete. What's being told in This House Has People in It is a different kind of thing. But it's the same kind of general concept of your house is unsafe and you can feel kind of crazy in your house. And I guess, and a PT was another thing that was on my mind when I was thinking about Anatomy, big time. Because again, it's a place where you live, and it's a place you're kind of stuck in, and you put a lot of faith in the halls of your home, but they can be kind of treacherous in their own way, you know?
Yeah, it's both like a sanctuary, but it can also, like, if it's compromised in some way, you have nowhere else to go, basically.
Right, yeah, and that's that concept of a haunted house. You think a haunted house is like the most old-fashioned of horror tropes, but the haunted house is still a pretty creepy idea.
Yeah,
ultimately.
because of that idea of that the one place that you should be safe from is no longer safe.
Yeah, exactly.
The place where you can be, you are protected from the elements, protected from outside threats. Like when the call is coming from inside the house. Yeah. Then what do you do?
Yeah, exactly. It's great, and Anatomy is all about that. It's all about that anxiety.
And the thing about Anatomy that also is really good is by the end of it, you're almost guilty about your anxiety because the house is not a malevolent force, you know?
Not in the beginning, yeah.
But like all it does is it just misses having people in it.
Yeah, it does. It's basically the house has kind of lost its mind from the years of being alone, and now it's lashing out. It's when people come in and trash the house, it kills the guy and throws him down the stairs. There's the bit when you're trapped in the basement does that happen? Did you get that one?
I got the one where the teeth come out of the basement floor.
Yes.
And then on my next reload, I got it where I was inside of a body, it felt like.
Okay. That's the one. There are three. There's that one. There's one where you wake up and you're actually in the neighborhood and you're crawling toward the house. And then there's a third one that I can't remember right now.
Oh, I didn't know there were multiple of them.
But they're randomized. It's not a thing you can earn via choices. It's just you get one of each of them. And they all kind of portray the same feeling generally of just like this house is alive and it's lonely and it's angry. But when the house is kind of killing you, it says there's a distinction between dissection and vivisection, and you get this idea that the house has gone from being lonely to being malevolent, just out of like raw bitterness, you know? And so, but at the same time, by the end of Anatomy, you still feel bad for it because, you know, it's like a lonely existence where you're just kind of stuck. You obviously, if a house is alive and they can't move and it just sits empty and alone forever, like, it's so sad to just, and especially, again, going back to abandoned houses in the countryside, you know, these houses here in North Alabama that were left totally empty. I mean, it's some of these houses people will never go back to. Yeah,
it's, you know, we talked about this during a lot of episodes. We talked about this during Detroit, where we imprint our emotions on inanimate objects, and like, you never think about how much you imprint on a house.
Yeah, your house is it is a reflection of yourself. If you live in a house long enough, the house becomes you can walk through somebody's home and get a great idea of what that person is like just by looking at what's in the house itself. And so the house becomes kind of an impression of yourself, and then if you just up and leave one day and nobody ever comes back, you've kind of left that energy. And I mean, that's like really like woo mumbo jumbo shit, but you know, you go to these houses enough, you kind of, it's like, you don't think there's a ghost there, but there's something there. And it's like an unbearable loneliness in some of these houses.
Well, it's because it's also the idea of like, well, they left, like, you know, the whole thing is about like imprinting real physical human emotions on an inanimate object. Well, what would have to be so bad that they would leave this stuff?
You just up and go and take nothing with you?
Yeah.
Like, why? It's crazy to me. Yeah.
Not even in a like, well, you had to leave behind your clothing and your, you know, stuff you need for survival. But like, you left your personal belongings. You left the things that mattered enough to you that you would own them. like you said, one of the houses you saw had a Christmas wreath on there. Like, you didn't...
Yeah.
They left that behind.
Yeah, you leave this stuff behind and you wonder, like, what happened? You know, in some cases somebody died and the family just didn't want to do the upkeep of the house anymore.
Yeah.
But, I mean, what boggles me the most is that sometimes these houses will just be sat to rot, but because of, like, a family or maybe because of, like, a neighborhood law, the yards are still kept up.
Oh, that feels very unsettling.
It is incredibly unsettling. The house with the chair that we thought had a person in it, it was one of those where the yard was manicured, like it had just been recently cut. So somebody still has to tend to this house, the yard, but the house itself just is sitting and rotting, and yeah, it's spooky.
There's something almost worse about
right?
like because it's also one of those things, like, the really, really old vending machine that has product still in it and is constantly being like reloaded, but it's from like the 1970s.
Yeah.
And it's like,
who's doing that? Yeah, absolutely.
What's worse, that it's abandoned and just left there, or that someone out there is going back to it regularly?
Yeah, it's horrible. Oh, it's the worst. Yeah, because we kept the other feeling, the anxiety there as well is somebody might show up if you're you're in an abandoned house that still has a cut yard. You are very afraid somebody is going to show up with a shotgun and be like, "Get off my property." You know what I mean?
It would be like going to a house where like everything in the house is covered in dust except for one shelf.
Absolutely. Oh man, it's totally it. Yeah.
Or you would see like a ring in the middle of a shelf where something was removed recently, and you're
no, don't like that. Yeah.
So that's what anatomy is. Anatomy is really good at combining all of these uneasy feelings of loneliness, of like abandoned, of like missing, something or someone, and then combined with the unsettling of something might be lurking in the dark.
Yes.
Of like these tapes with discordant recordings like being played, and they get more and more corrupted as time goes on.
Which never stops being scary, ever.
Never, ever. The VHS filter also never stops being scary.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and the text, like when you play a tape and it ends, and it'll like, in the first loop, it's like there is a tape in the living room or something, right? And in the next subsequent loops, the text is becoming more like warped, and then at one point when the text is like incomprehensible, then the next loop plays and it just says living room, and you're like, no.
And then you get one that just says hurts, and you're like,
hurts. Yeah, it's bad. Spooky. It's spooky. You're just waiting for something to come kill you. Yeah.
It's
good.
It's the thing about like actually Melissa, my wife, was talking about this. She's like she told me just now, we were talking about she's like, that's bullshit that there actually isn't a monster in this game.
That's the best part. The monster is the house. And like the sympathetic villain is the house itself. And it's all combined, and you realize like that the monster is the house and the villain is the house, and you can't get out. When you have that feeling, you're just like, oh, I am fucked. And then you load it up one last time after the house eats you alive, and you get the very, very sad recording. And
the thing about like inventing ghosts in a house.
Yeah, that's
so that it feels
good.
Like it's occupied for a little bit.
Yeah, it's its gorge may rise as it asks itself through clenched teeth, what did I do wrong?
Yeah, it's so good.
It's so good. It's that idea. Every house is haunted because we leave, even if you don't, like, necessarily believe in ghosts, we still leave, like, imprints of ourselves on our places, and those manifest as, like, a feeling, or as, like, a spirit.
Like,
and, yeah.
No matter what, when you leave a house, you are leaving something behind. If it's a scratch in the floor, if it's a nail hole that's been covered up, you know, something, your presence has to be known somewhere throughout the house.
Until they eventually bulldoze that house.
Yeah.
Like, you have left your mark on it, basically, forever. Until, you know, something radical happens to that house, which is fascinating.
Right.
I know, I'm in a rental right now, and I'm just, like, thinking of, like, I look around at it, and I'm thinking of, like, all the little things I've done to this house, that until somebody comes in and renovates it, will kind of stick around, you know?
Yeah. And even then, like, even if they renovate it, if they paint over it, like, it's still going to be there.
It's still there, yeah. You're still, the memory of something as simple as a hole you put in the wall to hang paintings, that's still there. And that's really interesting.
Yeah.
And it also kind of still makes you a little nervous about living alone and
a little bit.
Night, you know? But ultimately, the nice thing about Anatomy is that the ending is kind of bittersweet, and it's kind of sad, scary sad. Was that a feeling? Does that have a word? I don't know what that word is.
There's got to be some, like, German word for when you're both, I guess, haunted. Haunted,
yeah, I
basically.
guess you feel haunted by it, but not in a bad way.
Right.
Because the way Anatomy ends, it doesn't make me as afraid of my own home the way this house has people in it did. Or the way PT made me afraid of where I live. So yeah. We talked a lot about Anatomy.
Half of the episode was Anatomy.
Whoops, I really like Anatomy, guys.
No, but that's fine, because, like, the other two we played, like, one was barely incomprehensible in the first place.
It's a cool concept.
And the other was pretty straightforward about what it was.
Right, but there's a lot going on in Anatomy, which, yeah. Yeah,
so all of these are really good, and I'm not a horror guy, so, like, the fact that you actually got me to play them in the first place is something. I don't know if I mentioned it, but, like, yeah, I nearly quit out of Rot because I was like, nope, I can't handle it, and Melissa was like, let's just get through it.
It's so short. So, as a final plug, though, for Kitty Horror Show, which is the woman who made Anatomy, she's really cool. She has a Patreon. If you're a $5 subscriber at Patreon or more, you get, like a few other people, do monthly experimental horror games. The guy who did, like, Babysitter Bloodbath and Power Drill Massacre and stuff like that, that guy, he does that as well, where they put out, like, monthly or every 2 months, they'll put out just a really short experimental, could be broken, might not be, horror game where they just kind of explore crazy concepts. She just released her Haunted Cities Volume 3, which is a little compilation of some of those games. That's Kitty Horror Show, I mean. She just put that out. She's got 3 compilations out now of that. And then Anatomy is only $3 on itch.io, and it is a game you should still experience for yourself, even though we talked about it pretty in depth, because there's a lot of really good feelings in that, and you should experience them with your own 2 hands. There's no jump scares, it's just unsettling.
Yeah, the 3 we played, there are no jump scares in any of them, and that's like my kryptonite right away.
Yeah, jump scares I don't really even like jump scares that much, but there's none in this. It's just tension. It's just a building sense of tension that eventually kind of comes to a head. So you should check out every single one of the games we talked about tonight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So thank you, Visager, for use of background music. You can follow us on Twitter at The Gorge Podcast. You can email us at thegorgepodcast@gmail.com. And if you want to experience more drama and tension and anxiety, you can listen to Sarah's other podcast and hear the great stories in that.
Hey, good job. Hey, I'm in another podcast called Big Gay Nerds. It's an LGBT RPG podcast where me and a bunch of cool queer friends sit around and we play tabletop games together. We try out different systems. We have a lot of fun. Right now we're playing Blades in the Dark. We're still going at it. And if you want to hear tension, you should go listen to an episode of Blades in the Dark where we have to try to convince people of things, but our face character was not around for that session. So it went horribly. Spoiler alert. Yeah, you should come check us out. We're at Big Gay Nerds on SoundCloud, and you can find the links to all of our social media from there.
All right, that'll do it for us.
What you got, Ben?
Man, fuck that tornado siren. That's not fair.
Oh man, you're totally right, because both of us have now revealed on this podcast that we both have like a thing about tornadoes. Like in the same episode, it's like Ben's like, I don't like tornadoes, and I was thinking like you're literally like saying like, I don't like tornadoes, and I'm thinking I was gonna lead the anatomy discussion about tornadoes, so that actually works really, really well.
Because for one thing, it had nothing to do with the rest of the game. All it did was make me uncomfortable.
So yeah, fuck tornado sirens.
Yeah.
Good night, everyone.